Live from the local station, this is Friday Night Lights on News4JAX Plus, presented by Farah and Farah, featuring 1010XL.
And welcome, Friday Night Lights on 4 Plus, week number 7, with Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL Radio. And Justin, what a week of Northeast Florida football we have in store for us tonight. A lot of really good games. We'll tell you about the Channel 4 Game of the Week in a moment, but happy to be back with you under the Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, it's a leaner week in terms of how many teams are off, but still some good ones, including our surf and turf with Beachside and Tocoi Creek, but always good to be with you, Hacker.
How about a little bit of breaking news right off the top? I don't know if you saw this. One of the highly touted commits in our area, Corbin Fordham from Bolles, apparently has just in the last couple of moments decided to switch his commitment from Ohio State to Florida State. How about that?
Mike Norvell was just in the area, so now makes a little bit of sense. I saw Corbin at Bolles practice this week, so good family with Corbin Fordham, and his dad may have played at Florida State.
His dad
right?
knows a little bit about playing for the Florida State Seminoles. The Bolles Bulldogs enjoying a bye week last week after a very impressive start to their season. Before we take a look ahead at tonight's action, Justin, let's take a look back. Some really big games last week. One of the really big games was a game that we talked about and followed very closely last week, and that was St. Augustine and Lake City, Columbia. Talk about a much-deserved bye week. The Yellow Jackets are in at 6-0, a bye week tonight after beating Lake City, Columbia, already with wins over Nice and Bolles as well. To me, they're the best team in the area through 6 weeks.
With apologies to Raines, because I just don't think Raines has played the competition to see how good they are. When you schedule these teams, you expect Trinity to be better. You expect Riverside to be better. You put Miami Central on the schedule, and that game didn't go off. They beat Lake Mary, which is a really good team. But yeah, St. Augustine's body of work to me is undisputed. Really, really good. I mean, unbelievable. You go through Nice, Bolles, and Columbia on the front half of your schedule. That's pretty darn impressive.
It's unbelievable. So St. Augustine, obviously Samori and Wingo, a great player for them. They are 6-0 on the year. And then last week, Bolles playing Baldwin. We knew Bolles was going to be good on offense. I don't think we had any idea how much Baldwin was going to score in 49 points. But we had record-setting performances last week, including Xander Edwards, a sophomore running back. We'll get more into this as we get on the show tonight. But 8 touchdowns and 522 yards on the ground.
Pretty good game. You took Xander in fantasy last week. I think you probably won your game.
Yeah.
Also in that game, Gage Cruz threw for about 445 yards, a Baldwin quarterback. So just no defense in that game whatsoever, it seemed like. And just a really good all-the-way around performance from both of those teams, specifically Xander Edwards and that Bolles offensive line, playing without J.J. Sparks as well. We'll talk a little bit more about Xander coming up here in a few minutes, but great game, really great performance from both offenses.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Raines was a big winner last week over Riverside. Of course, Raines has the Northwest Classic tomorrow against Ribault, much more of that in a moment as well. And another big performance last week from Oakleaf and Fletcher, 2 one-loss teams coming in last week. Boy, Oakleaf, very little trouble with the Fletcher Senators.
I was surprised by that because Oakleaf, the last time out we saw them, they were losing big time to Bolles, 38-6. They shook that loss off and really beat a quality Fletcher team. Fletcher had been, not really battle tested, but really played well in a 22-6 loss to Nice. So when you look at that game, Fletcher was doing some good stuff, and then they had no chance against Oakleaf last week. So I'm curious to see if that's more of the Oakleaf we get the rest of the year, because Oakleaf, to me, offensively has been a little bit in a lull to start the season. I thought Oakleaf and Christopher Foy, his team, had played a lot better on the defensive side of the ball, so maybe that kind of sparks them for the second half.
Yeah, it was a really big win for Oakleaf last week over Fletcher. All right, when you look back in totality at last week, surprises, winners, losers, what was your biggest takeaway 7 nights ago?
I think the Bolles defense surrendering 49 to Baldwin was a surprise. Baldwin racked up like 550 yards of offense in that game. But I think a little bit more of a surprise to me was Nice losing at Buchholz, lose 27-7 in that game. That shows, you won that game the year before, and it kind of showed how, to me, it shows how much further ahead of everybody in that district that Buchholz is. So the Bobcats are really, really good football team. 4 state semifinals in a row. But I'm surprised that game wasn't a little bit closer. And we can talk about a little bit more niche stuff here in a minute on some changes for them on the defensive side of the ball. But I thought St. Augustine's win over Columbia, 41-21, was a little bit more lopsided than I expected. Samorian Wingo 3 touchdowns in that game, 2 receiving, 1 rushing, and he also had an interception in that game. So those are 2 of my bigger takeaways. The Bulls defense, you got to play better. And St. Augustine continued to make it look easy.
Yeah, Bolles certainly going to be working on that defense at their bye week. St. Augustine just resting up at their bye week. And I think that's one of the big terms of the night, Justin, bye weeks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bye weeks tonight.
Big week for bye. And that's traditionally how it is wherever the bye, wherever those first batch of district games fall on the schedule, usually week 6. Week 7 is a heavy, heavy bye week. And we see that this week with just about every team of magnitude off this week. I mean, Rains plays tomorrow, obviously, but Bolles, St. Aug, Nice, a lot of those teams, Oakleaf, off in week 7, and traditionally it falls that way.
Before we dive into tonight's slate, and there are some good games tonight despite all the bye weeks, let's get into Justin Barney's Super 10, the 10 best teams in the area as we enter the month of October. And that also is an interesting story. Yep. The month of October, this is where you really separate the great teams from the good teams to the teams that won't be making the postseason.
Yeah, and for me, there's a couple of times during the season where I look and say, all right, these are separators. When October starts, because the district games really get ramped up, and then the regional final in terms of the playoffs. So that's the kind of separation week where the good teams elevate to great ones. And then going into October, you've got your really, really difficult teams in terms of difficult matches with district tournaments. But now we got Super 10 right queued up, and a new number 1 team for us this week, Hacker. In my Super 10, St. Augustine kind of led with this off the top of the show. Their schedule has just been phenomenal. So they jumped Rains this week. I know I get static for that, but Rains falls to number 2. Bolles at number 3 after that shootout whenever Baldwin Mandarin rises up to 4. They're on the road tonight at Rockledge. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Oakleaf up to 5. Nice falls 1 to 6. Bradford, they're playing at Palatka tonight. They're up 1-7. Columbia, the big drop of the week from 4 to 8 after that loss to St. Aug. And then 9 and 10. Beachside was off last week, but they rose up 1. And then Ed White, a disappointing 52-49 loss to Merritt Island, and they fall from the ranks of the unbeaten.
Look, I'll support you on your 1 and 2 situation there because, again, look, if St. Augustine played Rains tomorrow, I don't know who I would take.
I know, I agree.
But the resume for St. Augustine is just simply better than the resume for Rains.
Yes.
And I agree with you. Right now, St. Augustine's the best team in the area.
Yeah, and I don't think you can, and I don't think we're going to know how good Rains is. I mean, they're clobbering teams. But you're not going to know how good they are until they get into these knockdown, drag-out games. I mean, we saw a glimpse of how good they are when they just took Lake Mary apart, 51-3. And that was a 7A state runner-up last year, the quarterback going to Notre Dame. So Rains is really, really strong. But again, I don't think you're going to see how good Rains is. And they are darn good. They could be the best team in the area, and I think they probably got the best shot to win a state championship. Them and Bolles. But yeah, it's when you see good teams, and I can't fault Rains for scheduling the Trinities, the Riversides, because you always expect those guys to be good, but they just haven't been this year. Madison County is usually really, really good. They're coming up here. They haven't been as strong this year. And you lose the Miami Central game, that's kind of that would have been a fantastic challenge for Rains. So I don't think you're going to see exactly how good Rains is until you get to probably that 3rd round of the playoffs.
Speaking of Rains, we're going to be joined by Donovan Masline later on in the program, the Northwest Classic, another chapter in the great rivalry here in Northeast Florida. Rains and Ribault tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I talked to Coach Masline for the radio program as well. Festivities begin at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. It really is an all-day event.
It's an all-week event. It is so cool to be a part of that game. In 2019, we broadcast the 50th anniversary of that game, and I went over and the pep rally at Rains, and they hold a fake funeral procession. That they're putting Ribault, the Trojans, into the casket and putting them in the hearse and everything. So cool because these kids know each other, they're friends, their families went to these schools, and it's just such a good environment of competition, families, the bantering. It's it's almost like a Florida Georgia in a sense. The husband's a Gator grad, the wife's a Georgia grad, and it's just that friendly kind of spirited competition. And Raines and Ribault, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, it's just such a quality. To me, it's one of the, if not the best events in Jacksonville every single year.
And the Northwest Classic tomorrow. All right, let's dive into the action tonight. And I know we're out at Fletcher and Flagler Palm Coast already, and I believe we have a touchdown on the board. Was that the Fletcher Senators getting in early on here in this action?
Yeah, big for the Senators to get in this game and win it, because they have not played. They played some decent teams and lost. And Palm Coast is a solid team. They're not as good as last year. Palm Coast last year was absolutely a wrecking ball last season. They lost a lot to graduation and such. But this would be a big win for Fletcher and Seatric Phase, and if they can hold on to this, it's really early in this game, halfway through the first quarter, but would be a big win for them on the road. They need this to really boost a little confidence and gain some ground in that point standings for the playoffs.
It would be a big response for Fletcher. Of course, we talked about them losing a bad one last week to Oakleaf. When it comes to Flagler Palm Coast, again, just taking a live look down at Flagler Palm Coast High School. By the way, beautiful campus down there, beautiful stadium. They got a lot going for them. And a brand new head coach, Patrick Turner, who was at Palatka the last couple of years, has taken over the Flagler Palm Coast program.
Yeah, and Patrick's a guy that's been well-traveled. He was at Menendez. He was the head football coach, athletic director, made the move to Palatka, did some really good stuff there, got the Panthers into multiple playoff series there. And then you go to Palm Coast, and Palm Coast is a sleeping giant, really almost like Palatka's sleeping giant in terms of in a small county, you're one of the only shows in town, and Flagler Palm Coast coming off a 10-win season, changed head coaches in the offseason, and Patrick got the job. Good guy, really kind of known as a maverick from some of his things he's done in the past and stuff, but really a good guy, and I think he's going to have some success there.
All right, you look at some of the other games, Justin, around the area. There is some weather in the area tonight, so it'll be interesting to see how the rain affects some of this. Pretty good rivalry down in St. Johns County between the two new guys on the block, Beachside and Tocoi Creek.
Yeah, Beachside and Tocoi Creek, the surf and turf rivalry is what they call it. 5th year of existence for Tocoi and the 4th for Beachside, and that's been such a good game the last few years. Tocoi leads that series 2-1. I'm expecting this one to go like last year's did, and that was Beachside beating Tocoi Creek in a very good game. But I think Beachside is just too strong this year. Eddie Jordan has been phenomenal. His group of receivers is fantastic. So we will see who can win the surf and turf, but on a lean towards Beachside in that one.
We'll give you a complete scoreboard update in a moment. We do know there are a couple of touchdowns already in the Ed White Atlantic Coast matchup. They're tied at 7 in the first quarter. You got Inglewood and Paxson. Stanton and Wolfson, interesting subplot there. The former Wolfson coach, Dennis Bettinger, now the coach at Stanton, comes back to Powers Avenue tonight.
And Stanton has been on a tear. If they win tonight, it would be a 3-game winning streak, and would be back-to-back seasons of 3-game winning streaks for like the first time in like a millennium. First time in forever, in a long, long time. So Bettinger is doing really well. Ryan Carter started that last year and got them clicking a little bit. And Bettinger's a good dude. So he coached at Wolfson before. And good to see him get back in the mix at Stanton. I know he's having a good time over there.
And he got that job in mid-July.
I know. That's so crazy. I talked to him at High School Football Media Day, and it was just like kind of thrown into the fire, and he's back in the mix. So yeah, pretty cool.
Who needs to win more tonight between Riverside and Trinity Christian?
Oh man, probably Trinity Christian. You're a proud program. So many state championships. You got 9 of those. It's an unfamiliar spot for them to be in. Last year they were in a similar spot. Tough start, and you lose. I think you're 6-4 in the regular season, and then you end up making the state semifinals. So Riverside, I don't expect them to be in that spot. I'm surprised how bad Riverside has been this year at 1-5, but I think Trinity Christian really, really needs this win.
A couple of our schools have hit the road for pretty decent road trips. Mandarin has traveled down to Rockledge. That game kicked off about 10 minutes ago. Bishop Kenny to the state capitol to take on Tallahassee Rickards. Likewise, that game kicked off about 10 minutes ago. What's your thought on BK and Mandarin tonight?
Yeah, BK is another team that needs that win. You've got a good win over UC already, but you've lost a couple games. Your last one out, you lost to Beachside. And in a record, on the wrong end of a record performance from Eddie Jordan. Again, Tim Krause and company, you get a win on the road. That's a good win if they go out to Rickards and bring back a win in that game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like we mentioned, Mandarin and Rockledge as well. And then another game quickly before I want to get back to the Xander Edwards situation from last week. I like Fleming Island and Creekside. Yep. Both teams playing pretty good football. Sean McIntyre and Creekside have seemingly found themselves a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Fleming Island's no pushover. That should be a good one tonight.
Yeah, and I think both of those teams, again, both teams in a very similar situation. If you're Fleming Island, you're staring at another loss, would be a district loss. Not a district loss, but it would be a loss that kind of puts you a little bit further behind in terms of the points rankings and stuff. So you lose that game, and all of a sudden you're staring at 3 losses and thinking, man, I've still got some tough games to get through. So that's a huge game for Fleming Island and for Creekside as well. You have basically a district championship game coming up against Atlantic Coast here soon. So you could lose this game and still get to the playoffs. But Sean McIntyre, you want to win these games. You want to compete. You got a young team. You need to see performances from your young players that make them feel like they can compete and win. Win a game in the playoffs. And Fleming Island feels like a playoff test tonight already for Creekside.
A couple of scores to update you on. Orange Park, an early 12-6 lead over Westside. Tocoi Creek is trailing Beachside already with a touchdown. Beachside 7-0 over Tocoi. Providence over Impact Christian 7-6 as well. We will keep you updated as these scores continue to roll on in. But we can't go any further without looking back at the performance of Xander Edwards, the running back from Bolles last week, the sophomore. Justin Barney, you're basically an encyclopedia when it comes to high school football in our area. One of, if not the most impressive individual performances that maybe we've ever seen in Northeast Florida last week.
Yeah, I would say let's take a look at some of these highlights from Xander last week from this game. We talked about Baldwin and the Bolles last week and the offensive explosion that was in that game, 73-49, and Xander Edwards just put up a unbelievable game against them. So let's take a look at some of the Xander runs from last week if we've got those queued up. But man, he was tearing it up. 39 carries in this game last week. It looks like he's hemmed in on the side. Says, "Oh no, I'm going the rest of the way, guys. See you in the end zone." First of his 8 touchdowns right there, and he just continues to get it done throughout the game. Xander Edwards takes a handoff here. And, last year, Matt Toblin said Xander played like a big back. He played like a big back. His dad was a fullback in the NFL. And this year, Xander slimmed down and got a little bit leaner, got a little bit faster. And the kid just rips off these massive runs and dares people to catch him. He is faster than he looks, and he is very, very quick. I had a chance to get up and chat with Xander this week and got to hear from him and some of his offensive linemen and how much that record meant.
Get through last week, 522, 8 touchdowns. What was going on?
Yes, sir. I mean, just they kept feeding me the ball. Our O-line did a great job blocking, of course, and I just ran through them. I get all credit to the O-line.
Have you had a chance to kind of decompress from 522?
It's unreal. It's surreal. I'm still trying to process all of this because it's like crazy, but it's a blessing. I'm blessed.
Go to this full screen.
Just want to thank I want to thank my mom, my dad, everybody.
Yeah, pretty crazy performance from Xander. Awesome to talk to him and bringing up a little bit in terms of area rushing history. We're going to go to one of these full screens right here and show you where that mark ranks in terms of some of the notable area records. So Xander Edwards, of course, he is at the top there right now with that 522 8 touchdown performance. Number 2 on that list is not a bad name, is it? Derrick Henry. Anytime you race past the Derrick Henry record, and I remember I was working that night and Clayton Freeman was covering that game, and he's calling me every few minutes and saying, "Hey, Derrick, let's get close to this record." Ends up with 502 and 6 rushing touchdowns in that win over Jackson. Bilal Ali from Clay, he had a record in the playoff, 496 yards against North Marion in 2015, 5 touchdowns. That's still a state playoff rushing record. Of course, Derrick Henry again at Taylor County. I covered that game. That was a big one. 485 and 6 touchdowns. And then just a couple weeks ago, DJ Alderman from Hilliard, He went for 477 and 7 touchdowns against St. Joe. So there's 5 of them. And then I got a few more here. Derrick Henry again against West Nassau, 455 and 5 TDs. Maurice Wells, that's a Duval County public school record there, 429 and 5 TDs against Stanton back in 2003. He didn't even play a half of that game to show you how well he was succeeding in that game. Terrence Flagler, the legend from Fernandina Beach, he had 408 yards and 7 touchdowns against West Nassau back in 1981, I believe that game was. And then, of course, Derrick Henry, another one on the list, 404 and 6 touchdowns in that magical 2012 season. So, man, a lot of performances to look back on and kind of look. And I saw it was erroneously reported that Derrick's 6 touchdowns led the state. I saw some Max Preps and some others running with that, but no, that's there have been bigger performances than 6 touchdowns in a game. But man, just so remarkable to see some of those names.
And it's one thing to keep in mind too, because I had people texting me saying, "Well, was Bolles running it up?"
Yeah.
No, Baldwin kept scoring.
Yes.
Right, Baldwin scored 49. So basically what happened, particularly in the second half, and we were airing this game on 1010XL last week, Xander Edwards would bust off a 40-yard touchdown run. Well, 90 seconds later, Baldwin's in the end zone, so Bolles gets it back, and it was just basically the same thing for the last quarter and a half.
The whole game, and that was kind of the, in the Derrick Henry game against Jackson. Somebody on Facebook commented last week, Derrick was running, they were running the score up, and he sat out the fourth quarter of that game. No, he didn't. They were in a tug-of-war with Jackson, back and forth, and Derrick played that whole game because they needed him to. I mean, 45-28 game, and Jackson was banging with them and giving it right back to him. And Bolles last week, Matt Toblin said, everything kind of broke well for Xander to have this big game because the first running back, fractured collarbone. Another one, a hairline fracture in a leg. The other one, turf toe. So the 3 backup options for Xander Edwards, they were all out of the game. So it was by necessity that he had to just continue to get that ball. I mean, Xander Edwards is not getting 39 carries in traditional games. And they did that out of necessity. And the other fact is Baldwin was in that game in the fourth quarter of that game. So their ability to just really kind of put up points through the air, score quickly, really necessitated Bolles having to say, hey, guys, we got to keep this up. We got to keep feeding Xander because these guys won't go away.
Sophomore. I mean, I think that can't be understated. He's a sophomore running back. You combine his talent. We mentioned Bryson Wright from Mandarin, the all-world flag football catch on ESPN. We know what he's done so far this high school season. He's also a sophomore. Can you remember a year where arguably, and there's other underclassmen as well, where arguably the best players in the area are not seniors?
Man, it's there have been like Tim Tebow's year, obviously Derrick Henry his years, but usually you see a senior player kind of physically they're stronger, they've been in the system longer. Typically you see that senior assert the dominance and be that, but we have got some elite underclassmen. The sophomore class, the 2028s. Are stout. I mean, they are as good as they've been that I can remember. And I look back to the Kevin Tolliver at Trinity, C.C. Jefferson, those guys when they were young. You knew they were going to be good. They ended up being exceptionally good. Tolliver and Jefferson were top 10 in the country, 5-star guys. But we're going to have, at this pace, we've already got 2 5-stars in Asher Gitto and Bryson Wright. I think we could have another guy when all things settled and Xander gets the name a little bit more out there. He's going to be in that conversation too because you got NFL bloodlines. Your dad played fullback at Notre Dame. He was a 2nd-round pick. He played in the NFL for quite a few years.
He's a character too, Mark Edwards.
He's a good guy.
We used to have him in studio. He's a good guy.
Good comment.
Yes.
But yeah, him, when you got those bloodlines, and Xander is not a small kid. He's 6'2", 220 as a sophomore. He's only going to get bigger and stronger and faster. So I think we're going to have, if not 3, I think we're going to have more than even that in terms of high 4s and even 5-stars as sophomores.
While we're on the Bolles topic real quick, they're out of bye week this week, 1 blemish on their record. Their loss to St. Augustine earlier in the year. How do you assess Bolles at the halfway point?
I think they have the potential to be a state champion. What worries me about them, I think they have the best offensive line in the area, hands down. Their offensive line, last week's game, you didn't even have J.J. Sparks in that game, the Miami commit. So you didn't have J.J. Sparks in that offensive line. I've got to mention the offensive line. The offensive line names, and I'm gonna get them wrong if I don't look at Josh Hoekstra's message to me the other day. I don't want to leave these guys out because fantastic. Okay, Andrew Smith at left tackle, Caleb Barnes at left guard, Ryan Ingram at center, Reed Cobble at right guard, and William Zabrowski at right tackle. Unbelievable game from those guys. Tight end was William Barakat in that game as well. So all those guys contributed to that record big time, and Xander was quick to point that out. But I think their offensive line is a strength. I think Xander Edwards is unbelievable. You got Weatherly, who knows how to play at quarterback, Naeem Burrows, Cam Teetsy. So the pieces are there. The question for me on Bolles is, if you're going to play deep in the playoffs and slug it out with private school later on, or Cocoa, you've got to stop the guys.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, St. Augustine went through them like hot knife through butter kind of deal, because you give up 40 to St. Augustine. There was like 28 points in the first 15 minutes of that game. It was crazy.
Well, that's what I couldn't understand about the Oakleaf game.
Yes,
because Oakleaf's got a good offense. Bolles shut them down, but St. Augustine and Baldwin put 40 burgers on that Bolles defense. That's odd to me.
And that's very, very surprising. So the defense worries me for Bolles in terms of what, the further they get. I mean, it's not going to happen in the first or second round of the playoffs, but third round of the playoffs, it could. You could run into a team that, that puts up numbers on you. And the thing with Bolles that worries me is their defense the later as this season gets for them. Offensively, I think they can hang with anybody, but defensively, I think there's cause for concern there.
Yeah, we again, we'll take you live in just a moment to Fletcher and Flagler, Palm Coast. That game going on right now. Talk about great running backs in the area. Seatric Faison was a phenomenal running back at Fletcher. Obviously went on to the University of Florida, the NFL, and now he's back as the Fletcher head coach. They're in a timeout right now. We'll let you know what's going on down at Flagler, Palm Coast High School in one moment. As we start looking at the scoreboard tonight, Justin, the teams that are playing, Orange Park 18-6. Over West Side. Paxson up early on Inglewood, 27-6. Wow, this is the score I have. I have Wolfson 19-0 over Stanton in the second quarter.
That's not good for me.
Which would be a big win for my alma mater.
Wolfson as the butt of the joke as they've been for a lot of people. Wolfson has got a decent team this year. They've got a good team.
They got an offense.
They've got a really good team. So, I foolishly picked Stanton to say, hey, maybe this is the year Wolfson's going to hit me up tonight again on Instagram. A few weeks ago, I picked them to lose to Bishop Snyder. They put up 49 and did not give up a point. And they were, I think, everybody on Wolfson. I heard from them.
As we take a look at Fletcher, Flagler, Palm Coast now, Fletcher with the ball. What about Seatric Faison at Fletcher? What the job he's done there the last couple of years? Obviously, it's rare when a star player of his caliber returns to that same high school to be the coach. Boy, you look at the field down there at Flagler High School. Good grief, the rain they've got. You look at those jerseys. The laundry will be very, very useful tonight with those white jerseys. But the job you make of C4 that he's done at his alma mater.
Seatric is a great guy. And what I like about Seatric is, he was all-time leading rusher until Derrick Henry came along in our area. Went to college, went to Florida, got drafted by the Vikings, played in the league, and when he got done playing in the NFL, he wanted to come back home and do something for the kids. He wanted to come back home and help kids out, inner city kids, beach kids, whomever it may be. He wanted to help those guys out. And he started recruiting kind of stuff to help guys get their names out there. And I think that's been his calling, is helping kids out, even kids not even on Fletcher. So I think that's a pretty good, resume of what he is, just as a husband, as a friend, as a coach, as a mentor. He is a really, really good guy. And funny, crazy, one of my first assignments with the Times Union when I got hired was Seatric Faison's third game, so as a freshman. So that's how long I've been doing this, and known Seatric a little bit of time. Really good dude.
Interesting, useless trivia knowledge. I have the same birthday as C4.
How about that?
October 29th, and I always tell him this. I was so excited. One of the highlights of my high school football career, they beat us like 61-6. I mean, it was just a beating. He had over 300 yards rushing in this game. but I pushed him out of bounds in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter.
all right.
He did not get 301 yards. He had 300 yards because of me that night there at the beach as we were the visiting team there with Wolfson.
Same birthday and same 40 time?
Not the same 40 time, unfortunately, but I'll take the same birthday as Theatric Faison. All right, Mandarin up early on Rockledge. Now, I talked to Toby Bullock last week, the head coach of Mandarin. He always likes to take a trip to Central Florida because odds are they're going to have to in the playoffs. They're down there tonight at Rockledge, and right now they lead 7-0.
Yeah, not a surprise. They won that game 24-7 last year, and I think they're going to do the same down here this year. Watching Beachside right now in Tocoi Creek, and got text from my writer out at the game. Dolan had an 11-yard touchdown run. We're tied at 7 in that game. Benny Gallela had the TD for Tocoi Creek. So Beachside and Tocoi in the Surf and Turf are tied 7-all. Between
those two schools, two young programs in St. Johns County, both 5 years or younger as overall schools, why, particularly Beachside, why have they gotten so good so quick?
You got a guy in there, Pete Duffy, who knows what he's doing. Tons and tons of success out on the West Coast when he was coaching high school football out there. And you're in a fertile area for high school football talent. I mean, St. Johns County, you've got, just a handful of schools, tons of people moving into St. Johns County. So you're very good middle school associations there, a lot of support in that. So I think you're in a great area for that. And you got a darn good coach too. And, it's so weird because a lot of teams tend to run the ball, and new teams, that's what's the easiest thing to do is run the football and not throw the football. But Pete Duffy came here and he says, hey, I'm going to throw this football. And they have been a pass-happy team ever since he's been there. And you can see Eddie Jordan, 535 in his last game out, big play right there. Man, they have got some weapons on that Beachside team. Maddox Hunstead, Drew Watson, and quite a few others. They are fun to watch.
See, the interesting thing about Beachside and Tocoi, not chopped liver, but those two schools have gotten very good very quick. But yet the other schools in St. Johns County are still pretty good. You would think with two new schools coming in that have been this productive, that would take away from some of the other public schools. Yep. Maybe a little bit from Bartram, but it really hadn't overall. All the St. Johns County public schools are pretty good still.
Yeah, Menendez is good. Bartram, they've won 2 in a row. Bartram's played a tough schedule, but you really don't have any dogs in that area. They're all pretty quality team, pretty high on the spectrum in terms of St. Augustine, and I would say probably the weakest teams right now are Menendez, Bartram. Even St. Joe, private school St. Joe's 5-0. All the teams there are really, really good. And I wouldn't even say, Bartram and Menendez aren't even close to being bad. They're very consistent at Bartram, and Menendez is still trying to get a little bit more consistent, but still a darn good team.
Ed White has taken a 14-7 lead on Atlantic Coast, and the Bradford County Tornadoes up 7-0 early on Palatka.
Yeah, no surprise there, and that I'll be surprised if Palatka scores. Bradford is just so good. They started out slower last week against Keystone Heights and ended up winning 53-0. I think that's going to be similar to what we see tonight from Bradford and Palatka.
I know we're hoping to hear from Donovan Masline, the head coach of Rains, coming up here in about 10 or so minutes. That does bring us to the Northwest Classic tomorrow, Rains and Ribault. Rains is a machine, no doubt about that. Although you talk to Ribault, and they think they're playing pretty well. They think they could keep it close, certainly. That's the hope tomorrow. But the game is one thing, the environment's the other. Yes. We always tell people, you got to go experience a Northwest Classic.
Yep.
You've experienced a bunch of them. Take us through it. What makes that game so special?
It's hard to say because I think it's almost on a smaller version of Florida, Georgia, to me, because you got the passionate fans over there. The stadium is split down the middle. Everything about Rains and Ribault Week, from the pep rallies, from the church services, there's so much pageantry that goes on with that event, and it's because all these kids and teachers and parents and alumni and everybody has somebody on the other side of the aisle. So it's such a cool experience. It's not just a one-day game. It's not just a Saturday afternoon game. This game was played in the Gator Bowl back in the day, so that shows you how big it is. And I remember Duran Wiley, after a game one year, maybe in 2013 or 14, I asked him, I said, would you like to see this game go back to being played there? He said, this is such a big game that I would love to see it have a platform other than just at the schools. But on the flip side of that, it's what makes that game so good is that it's at those schools and everything. I mean, if you've never been to, and I know it's more different now in terms of the tailgates and stuff like that, but going to old Ribault and Range games, you'd walk through and, you know, class of 89 here, class of 84 here. They're all intense, and, you know, people from those years that graduate are over with them, and it's just such a cool thing. It reminds me of like a high school version of Florida, Georgia, because the fans are passionate. They all know each other. They all have good ribbing and stuff like that. There's money being wagered on the games, and it's just really cool, like a backyard kind of rivalry that you can relate to.
I remember the first time I went to Ribault, it kind of freaked me out because you can see Rains from the Ribault campus. If you listen close enough, you can almost hear the bell ring at the opposite campus. They're within a mile of each other, and that's just what adds to what a great rivalry that is.
Yeah, really, there's nothing like it in there. And I said one of the best events in North Florida, and you know, between that and the Bob Hayes, you know, I think two of our best athletic events are high school football or high school related with Range and Ribault, be it on the football field or the Bob Hayes when it was held at Range. And it's just such a cool thing. You're separated by a mile. You got parents who went to one school, their kids to another. I mean, TJ Cole, the quarterback at Range, went to Ribault. Yeah. You know, so many of those kind of good storylines like that, and just the atmosphere at those games is unbelievable.
More scores rolling in as we'll wait to talk with Donovan Masline here in a matter of moments. NFEI, a 12-7 lead on Episcopal. That would be an upset. Episcopal pretty quietly has had a nice year.
Yeah, they have. And Episcopal won this game handily last year. And I thought about picking NFEI because they're really good. Jamal Fudge is doing a really good job over there. They have a good quarterback. They're getting things done. But the thing that worried me with Episcopal, not worried me, but the thing that made me pick Episcopal, they're a bigger program. They got more bodies and stuff. So I thought maybe in the second half of that game, it would favor the Eagles. But NFEI has played a tough schedule as well. They're something to be reckoned with over NFEI. And usually it's NFEI basketball, but hey, we got a touchdown here from Flagler Palm Coast.
A deep ball for Flagler Palm Coast as they find the end zone. Does that tie the game? I think it was 7-0 Fletcher, right?
I think they're up now. I think it was 7-7.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah.
I think Palm Coast has just gone in front.
They sure, yep. Well.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's
7:29 to go. Is that in the second quarter? We'll see if that score updates. But yeah, it looks like Flagler Palm Coast in the end zone. That was about a 40-yard pass.
Good play there. From the Bulldogs, of course, like I mentioned, they graduated a ton of talent. But man, I've been to a few games there, and it's certainly an atmosphere down there. Not the Potato Bowl, but it is still a great environment to watch a game. Of course, Potato Bowl was Flagler Palm Coast and Matanzas. So it's 7-6 now. Fletcher clinging to that 1-point lead.
I really hope that extra point was blocked. I don't really understand what just happened there, but I'll let Justin try to explain it to you.
That looked like me on maybe the tee box in 17 at Sawgrass. And,
yeah, that was something. But Fletcher's up 7-6 in a sloppy field because of the weather, but a good competitive game down there at Flagler Palm Coast. Quickly, Trinity Christian, a 9-0 lead over Riverside.
Yeah, to me, it's just Trinity's team is so young and so inexperienced in a sense that you kind of just wait for the light to go on. This probably the youngest team Verlin Dormity's ever coached. And I remember last year before the season said, Justin, this is the first time that I can remember where I don't have a senior with an offer. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a lot of seniors on the team, but it just showed you how inexperienced that Trinity program was.
Wolfson has added a touchdown, 26-0. They lead Stanton. Paxson 34-6 over Inglewood as well. As you look around the area tonight, again, Mandarin up early on Rockledge. We don't have a score yet on Bishop Kenny and Tallahassee Rickards, but this seems to be a theme, Justin, whenever our schools travel outward. They're going to see Tallahassee schools in the playoffs. Yep. They're going to see Orlando schools in the playoffs. You hope they can do well in the regular season. Yep. To this point, they have, and Mandarin's off to a good start tonight.
Yeah, man. Again, that's games. You know, Corky Rogers always wanted to take road trips that would emulate what they would have to see in the playoff. Matt Toblin, same thing at Bolles, kind of kept that up. You know, they went down and played Monarch in the first game of the season. So you want to play games that, again, there's nothing wrong with playing local teams, but I think it does teams good sometimes. Teams who have, aspirations of going deep into the postseason, it does them good to go out and see a team that it will resemble in the playoffs. The road trip factor as well, so you go there and you have a little team bonding experience kind of thing. Not a touchdown there from Beachside, but it was close. And to kind of get you into that feeling of this is what we're going to see come late November, so it's good to get a taste of it now.
Ed White is interesting because, as you said, they took their first loss, a high-scoring heartbreaker, quite frankly, last week in a loss to Merritt Island. We wanted to see how Ed White would respond against Atlantic Coast, and quite frankly, Ed White should win this game. 14-7.
Yeah.
Atlantic Coast keeping it close in the second
Atlantic
quarter.
Coast is having a solid year. They're 3-2. Good edge rusher. I think Desmond Malpress is really, really good. He's going to be a four-star guy that you see next year, be one of the top prospects in the class of 2027. So I think Atlantic Coast has something going for him. I think it's just offensively, can you be consistent enough to beat an Ed White?
You mentioned Stanton earlier in the year they're having. How about some love for Paxson?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. Paxson beat Stanton in the Brain Bowl. Paxson put together a couple of nice wins. And you and I talked about this at the beginning of the year. We talk about longevity with coaches in our area.
Yeah.
Boy, Steve Brown has been at Paxson, I think, 13 years now as their head coach.
I remember when he got hired and calling him and doing a story because he's from Sandalwood, and asked him, like, is this kind of your stop? Is this what you're going to do? Oh, we'll see how it goes. But I'm here for now. And he was excited. That was 13 years ago. It's just crazy how those years just kind of roll back to back to back.
Baker County, a 20-0 lead on Halifax. And that's a game that Baker County should win pretty easily. And they are. They're taking care of business. They've seemed to have found themselves, too. We talk about teams that got off to slow starts. Bartram Trail was one. Yeah. Well, Baker County was another one. But it appears in the last couple of weeks, Baker County is kind of falling back in line a little bit.
They're going to get their homecoming game tonight. I think they win that game handily. It's a game they should win, probably running clock style. But yeah, that's Baker County getting back to being more Baker County.
As we are, 6:30 games are nearing the half, 7 o'clock games are in the second quarter. Anything from the scoreboard jump out to you early tonight?
Nothing crazy. Just to me, the Ed White and Atlantic Coast game, that's a little bit like, Ed White should probably be a little bit further ahead in that game. That's it. It's so far early. Nothing jumps out crazy.
Donovan Masline of Rains. Hopefully we'll catch up with him in just a little bit. Again, the Northwest Classic tomorrow between Rains and Ribault as Flagler, Palm Coast, and Fletcher back underway. We've got Beachside and Tocoi Creek as well. The Channel 4 game of the week between Beachside and Tocoi Creek. Quickly explain to people, you said the surf and turf rivalry. Where does that come from?
Yeah, it's the surf, the Beachside, even though they're not really near the beach. And then the turf is the Tocoi Creek Toros, the Bulls, So you got the surf and the turf, the Bulls and the Barracudas in that game. Right now it's 10-7. Beachside is up in that game. So we will see if Owen Carey, a 30-yard field goal in that game. So 10-7 was the latest update on that game right there. And then, of course, Fletcher up 7-6 over Flagler, Palm Coast.
And it makes sense they would be the rivals because they basically opened within 1 year of each other, right?
Yeah, 1 year. So this is the 5th year for Tocoi Creek and the 4th year for Beachside. So first true full graduating class for Beachside, guys who've been there since 9th grade. And this is their first graduating class where you've got the kids going there all 4 years.
Donovan Masline will be one of the coaches tomorrow in the Northwest Classic. What's your quick thought on Michael Hunter, the Ribault coach?
Yeah, I think he's done as good of a job as he can with the circumstances, with the school being demolished and, having to go out of, go to school in the middle school for a year while your school is being demoed, and you got kids transferring. They don't want to be in that stuff. So I think he's done a good job to kind of hold things together.
Tell you what, let's step aside real quick. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with both Donovan Masline and Michael Hunter in just a moment. We'll come back with a complete scoreboard update. We got cameras live at Flagler, Palm Coast, and Fletcher, also in St. Johns County with Beachside and Tocoi Creek. He is Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL, and you're with us under the Friday Night Lights, presented by Farrah and Farrah. A lot more to do, and we are glad you are with us.
This is Bruce.
So happy he looks.
That guy, give him that hug. I love you. You're definitely a Jags super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go.
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
Back here under the Friday Night Lights with Justin Barney, the hacker Ryan Green with you. Let's give you a complete scoreboard update, and I think a couple of things jumping out early. Ed White up early 14-7, Justin, on Atlantic Coast. How about Orange Park, 26-6 over Westside, and Mandarin has jumped on top of Rockledge 14-0.
Yeah, not surprising there. Orange Park's had good wins this year. Westside's mired in a losing streak, so not surprising at all right there.
You know, you look at some of the other scores. Paxton 34-6 over Inglewood, Wolfson 26-0 over Stanton, and you got Baker County all over Halifax, and again, NFEI 12-7 over Episcopal, maybe the biggest surprise of the night to this point.
Yeah, it's a little bit of surprise. We'll see if they can keep that going in the second half. So right now we got head coach Donovan Masline joining us live right now. Coach, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you spending an off Friday night with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me?
Are you ready for the big game tomorrow?
Oh, yes, sir. We're definitely ready. Can you?
Well, Coach, the Northwest Classic obviously is always a special moment between Raines and Ribault. I know I talked to you on radio earlier today. Tell our audience here on Friday Night Lights on 4+ what the Northwest Classic means to you in that Raines program.
It means a lot. It's school pride, community pride. Two schools battling it out on Saturday, and then ultimately, throughout the week, the festivities that take place with the church service, alumni basketball game, the cheer off, the mixers, and stuff like that. So it's a moment that we can come out as two communities and just come as one big family and celebrate each other. And then ultimately, a team has to lose on Saturday. And we're excited for what we're going to be able to do on Saturday.
Donovan Masline of Raines with us here as they get ready for Ribault tomorrow and the Northwest Classic. Coach, again, you are considered to be one of the better teams in the area. There is no doubt about that. You've reached basically the halfway point of your season. How would you assess where you guys are as we enter the month of October?
I feel we're in a great spot right now. We're trending in the right direction. Offensively we're doing very well. I think we only punted one time this year. Defensively, they're playing pretty well. They're flying around, being violent. They're dominating at the line of scrimmage, and then ultimately playing great ball skills. Well, great defensively in the secondary. That's one of the areas that we wanted to make sure that we improved on throughout the off season with a couple of pieces that got added, and then ultimately just playing together as one unit. I'm excited for what they're doing, and when you all put it together, you get what we've been doing so far. And it's all about just those situations in practice. You want to work goal line, you want to work overtime, you want to work 2-minute, you want to work these situations so that you when you see them in the game, it's not unfamiliar. They can just go ahead and just hey, we've seen this before, and just battle it out in practice, and ultimately when it presents itself in the game, we'll be ready.
With you guys, you played in this game as a player, you coached in it as a coordinator, and now as a head coach. The vantage points you've had are pretty unique in this game. What makes this game so special to you, having been part of it in so many different ways?
I would say the amount of people that come out, tailgate, the amount of people that come to the game. You always want to play in front of a large crowd. You see a lot of schools in Georgia, a lot of schools in Texas. They have a lot of people at their games. And for, our community to come out and support each program, to show up in the stands, to fill the stands, kind of like a sold out crowd. I know, each stands hold about 35 people, and to see, that many people plus and other people outside of the game tailgating, it's just a great atmosphere just to be a part of. And not every kid is going to go play collegiate football, but they can have opportunity to play in front of thousands of fans, and that's one thing that stands out to me.
And that's one of the things I love, Coach, and you brought this up earlier to me as well, is it's not just the game that begins at 2 o'clock. That's the main event. But this is something that's going to begin at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, carry you
Right.
all throughout the day. It just adds to the pageantry, if you will, of the Northwest Classic.
Definitely, starting with the annual parade, is very, very vital and important to our community because we have a lot of different vendors. We have a lot of different businesses and companies that partake in the parade. You have a lot of dance companies, a lot of cheerleading teams and groups that partake in it that's in the area. And so they get an opportunity to be a part of a parade, as at a young age, and then the community, they can come out and watch, as they come down the roads and through the neighborhoods to just to see, something different there, that they can take their as their own, and on our side of town. So it's just great, just to have. And I'm glad that we are continuing the legacy, the tradition, so that we can keep it going for, years and years to come.
Well, as we begin to wrap up with Donovan Masline, the head coach of the Reigns Vikings, Coach, and it's not necessarily your fault, don't get me wrong, we've talked about this as well. You have trouble finding games, right? There are some instances where maybe just teams don't want to play Reigns. But what do you say to people that wonder about your level of competition, as they know you're probably going to have to see, teams from Orlando and Miami as you enter the playoffs?
We I preach to our kids a lot. It matters not who the opponent is. We have to make sure that we're doing is making sure that we're disciplined, making sure that we're executing on all levels. If we feel we have a lesser opponent, we need to make sure that the score shows that. Like, it shouldn't be close in certain ball games. And if we play sloppy ball, it doesn't matter who you play. Like, anytime you step on the field on a Friday night, you can be beat. So, we don't take anybody for granted. We don't take anybody lightly. We've talked about, our schedule. That is why, we had that game, scheduled week 1, because we really wanted to see where we measured up at with a really good opponent who's doing, good this season. So, our kids, they've learned a lot from last season of how to approach a game of that magnitude, of that type of opponent. The teams that we're going to see mirror us, with speed, with size, with coaching. So, we've learned a lot from that game, and we've come into this season, with the mindset it matters not the opponent. We just have to make sure Reigns is playing Reigns football. And I think if we continue to do that week in and week out, we'll be successful at the end of the season.
Well, Coach, Justin and I have been talking about it all evening. It's going to be a great atmosphere tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Invite folks out to the Northwest Classic. What can they expect with Reigns and Ribault tomorrow?
Man, just come out, support. 2 o'clock kickoff. It's gonna be, electric. It's gonna be a great atmosphere. The Royal Courts are gonna be out there, the cheerleaders, the bands, the Vikettes, and the Trojan uh dancers. They're gonna be out. It's just gonna be a great, great atmosphere to come watch Saturday football for Reigns and Ribault. And you can expect W coming from Viking land.
Well, Justin, we want to thank Donovan Masline for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for. I know it's a Friday night off for you, so thank you to coming on, and tell your wife and baby boy thanks for letting them pull you away tonight to chat with us for a few minutes.
Yeah,
Thanks, Coach. We'll see you tomorrow.
It's me and Deuce tonight, so we watching Transformers and just hanging out.
Well, thank you very much. Donovan Masline of Reigns,
Thank you
and he's
so
done a
much.
great job with that program, taking over for Duran Wiley.
Yeah, it means a lot to him. I mean, he's a guy that came up through the Reigns system, coached in a state championship game, lost state championship game, then won state championship games, and that's why I think, should Reigns get back down to that championship game, I think it's a different story. Duran Wiley said time and again, he learned so much from having the losses to Bolles, the struggles, those soul-stealing wins to Bolles, that it made him and his staff a better coach. And I think that loss last year to Miami Northwestern, as painful as it was at the time for Reigns, and I'm sure it still sticks with Coach Masline, I think that helps them in the longer term. because I do think Raines is going to play for a championship again this year, and I do think that it will be a different story just from what they've learned. I think they're a better team than they were last year, but when you go through those valleys, I think there's something at the end of it, and whether it's this year or not, I think Donovan Masline gets a championship before it's all said and done.
And I do think it's fair to mention that they sometimes have trouble finding games.
Yeah, big time.
Teams are not knocking down their door
Yep.
wanting to play them. So when you talk about the level of competition that they've played, which is an argument when you talk about Raines being the best team in the area, well, it takes two to tango.
Yeah,
and sometimes
that's right.
teams don't want to play them.
That's right. And, I had this conversation with somebody online the other night, and a Raines person was upset about the strength of schedule being posted and, where they ranked in the FHA standings. It is what it is. I mean, they didn't expect Riverside. Riverside is not typically this down. They're 1-5. Trinity Christian is not this down, ever. And they played Trinity. I mean, normally those would be two really strength of schedule games for Raines to help. You're not playing Ed White. The thing in Lake Mary is a quality team. Miami Central would have been an unbelievable game for Raines, and you get that one canceled for stuff beyond their control.
Right, they scheduled that.
Yeah,
That was the opener, and it got canceled. It had nothing to do with them.
They did, and what I would like to see is the Gateway Conference go away from making them team schedule a certain amount of Gateway games, and if I don't blame Ed White or Fletcher Mandarin for not scheduling Raines, because I think you're going to get your teeth kicked in those games, and I think they probably know that too, is why you're not scheduling those games. So Raines is next options if you're not going to be able to. To me, the Gateway hierarchy, Raines, Mandarin, they're in the tier of their own. Then it's maybe Baldwin, Ed White, Fletcher, and that next tier. Then everybody else is way on down. So if Raines can't get any dance partners from the Gateway in Mandarin, Fletcher, Ed White to go and dance with them, what are you left to do? And if you still have to schedule X amount of Gateway games, well, you're left with this, this makeup of teams to pick from. So that's when you put a Sandalwood or Atlantic Coast on the schedule, that's what you're left with. So you can't fault Raines for that's who they have on the schedule Gateway-wise, because you're kind of penciled into that regardless, if you like it or not. So can't fault them for that, but just the schedule is what it is this year. It just hasn't been that strong, and that's really through no fault of Raines' his own. They scheduled who they could, and you thought you were getting these great games in Miami Central, and Lake Mary turned out to be a good opponent, but you just don't have the marquee opponents. Madison County is usually one of the best teams in the state. They're having a down year this year, although I think that's going to be a good game for Raines. And then obviously you got Yulee in district with them, which is turning out to probably be one of the most difficult games they have left. Yeah,
Yulee undefeated on the season. All right, let's get some more scores that have rolled in, and then we're going to talk about the postseason. We've entered the month of October. We'll check the rankings and how it would fare out if the postseason started tonight. West Nassau 21-0 over Keystone Heights right now. Good performance by Gunnar Cox and West Nassau. Hawthorne 14-0 over Bayshore. We talk about Trinity still 9-0 over Riverside at the half. And at the 2-minute mark of the second quarter, Justin, I got Creekside 13, Fleming Island 10.
Oh, it turns out to be good. My kids are out the game tonight, and homecoming week down there at Creekside, so I know all the students there, all my friends' kids, and the friends of their friends are really excited for that game. So we'll see if Sean McIntyre and the Knights can make it a happy homecoming week with a win over Fleming.
Bishop Kenny is absolutely destroying Tallahassee Ricketts.
Man, let me venture a guess here. I'm going to say 33-10.
I have 49-7.
Oh, man.
I have 49-7.
Good. Hey,
Bishop Kenny over Rickards.
Caleb Madison, man, he is a baller at running back, and Krause is a really good coach, so not surprising me there, but big score there. Big score, 42 points.
So if the playoffs started today, the rankings come out every week this time of year. In 7A Region 1, again, we don't have a lot of schools in 7A, but we do have one that would be in the playoffs right now, and it's Atlantic Coast. They'd be in as the 8th seed. They would play Spruce Creek in round 1. Somebody's getting in between Atlantic Coast, Creekside, and Sandalwood. Right now it's Atlantic Coast with the knowledge that Creekside and them will basically have a district title game in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. I think it's going to be. I think it'll probably be Creekside coming out of there. But then again, you do have, which was just announced this week, voted on earlier, but just announced this week, the Florida Invitational Tournament.
Yeah,
So
I want to get
maybe-
into that with you.
Yeah, maybe a team like, if let's say Atlantic Coast misses out on that, they end up as a 9 seed out of there. Maybe they get in the Florida Invitational Tournament. Now that's another option for teams.
I had a whole conversation with Marty Lee, the athletic director of First Coast High School, about this. Basically, the Florida Invitational Tournament, think of it as the NIT.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't make the FHSAA playoffs, the next 32 teams, 16 1A to 3A, 16 4A to 7A, will be offered a spot in their own tournament.
Yes.
To where postseason football can continue for these kids.
Yeah, and they started it last year with the rural division. So, in the rural class, you had the Hawthorns and Madison County's just laying waste to teams every single year. So you're like, well, these small teams, they have no chance to compete against those guys. So what they did is they started an invitational tournament, and they said, okay, we're gonna take 16 teams, put them in their own bracket, because this is more of the true rural class teams. So they branched off of that, said we're going to do this and create an invitational tournament for the other teams. Every year there's teams that get pinched out of playoffs. You're 9 seed, you miss out by 1/10 of a point, and your season's over. This gives those teams a chance to get in and compete for something with teams that are probably in a very similar situation.
In Region 1 6A, if the playoffs begin today in the FHSAA portion, the big boy, the NCAA tournament, if you will, Buchholz would be the 1 seed right now. Oakleaf would be the 5, Mandarin the 3, and Nice the 2. So there would obviously be a lot of representation in our area in the 6A playoffs, Region 1.
Yeah, no surprise there. And that region's going to come down to Buchholz and another team from our area. So be it Mandarin, Nice, or Oakleaf.
Buchholz beat Nice by 20 last week. Could Mandarin or Oakleaf hang with Buchholz?
I don't think so. I think Buchholz is that far ahead of everybody. I mean, I think Oakleaf battled with them last year, and last year to me is one of Buchholz's more down teams than in recent years. This year, I think Buchholz is on another level.
In Class 5A, Region 1, playoffs began today. Beachside would be in as the 5. Ponte Vedra would be the 3. Middleburg would be the 6. They'd play each other in round 1, but those would be the 3 area schools in right now in 5A, Beachside, Ponte Vedra, and Middleburg.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Ponte Vedra and Beachside are the favorites there. I think Middleburg getting in. Middleburg's been the 8 seed the last few years, so I think they would gladly take a 6.
In 4A, St. Augustine would be the 1. Ed White would be the 4. Columbia would be the 3. And Tallahassee Rickards, a team Bishop Kenny is destroying tonight, would be the 6. That's ironic. But St. Augustine, Ed White, and Columbia would be the representation from 4A in our area.
Yeah, not surprising there either. I mean, St. Augustine and White met in the second round last year, I believe. Columbia and St. Aug played in the playoffs last year. So to me, how that region will go is going to be St. Augustine versus Choctaw in the regional final.
We mentioned 3A, and that is would be well represented as well. Raines would be involved there, Yulee would be involved there, Bishop Kenny would be involved there, and Baker County would be involved there. Let's quickly stop on Yulee for a second.
Yep.
We haven't talked about them a bunch. I've had Kyle Doherty, the head coach, on pretty much every night on the radio show, every Friday. They've had an interesting schedule. They've navigated all of it. They're the kings of Nassau County because they've knocked off all their competition in Nassau County. How good is Yulee? A 2-win team last year. I believe they already have, 5 or 6 wins this season?
Yeah, best start in school history for them. So I believe 6-0, and they believe out there. Really, I mean, they're strong as oxes out there. They are really good. They bought into the weightlifting program, and man, they are. Talked to Turtle Ricks out there a few weeks ago, and he's a big boy on that defensive line. And they're good. Yulee's good. I don't think they can beat Raines. But what they're doing out there after a 2-8 season with a lot of the same kids. I mean, you lost T.J. Williamson to transfer. He was their best player. He's up at Bolles now. So you lost guys to transfer, and you had a ton of the same kids coming back. And 2-8 kids last year, and now those guys are 6-0. So really big tournament.
Great job by that coach. Great job by that staff. Quickly in 2A, Bolles would be in along with Jackson and Baldwin if the playoffs started today.
Yeah, not surprised. I think Bolles is probably going to make the state championship game. But really cool for Baldwin this year to have that success. Gage Screws at quarterback. Of course, his brother Gavin was there for many years ago and did really good job. Tons of passing records for them. And Baldwin's had a pretty solid program. They even had an undefeated regular season back in, I think, 2020. So they're a good team, but this year's team is capable of putting up a lot of points.
And then finally in 1A, University Christian, Impact Christian, Episcopal would all be in. University lost last night. They've had another really interesting schedule. We haven't talked a lot about David Penland and University Christian, but how far could they go in 1A?
I think they'll get to the state semifinals. I think they're a Final Four team. Loss aside to True North, which is a good team. Bradford went down there a couple years ago and I think won 28-14. So that's not an easy game. They got beat by 20. So their only other loss was that the PAT against Bishop Kenny in a 21-20 game. So I think UC is going to play in the state semifinals this year.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. But again, what I love is postseason football. I think all kids deserve to be in the postseason if they've earned it. And I love the fact that the Florida Invitational Tournament is giving more opportunities to that. I just thought it was a great thing. Now, I believe you have to finish over 500 to get in. They're not just going to let anybody in. There's going to be a criteria.
Yes.
But if you're 5-5 or better and you get left out of the FHSAA playoffs, I applaud the powers that be for starting that other playoff tournament.
Yeah, and I hear it from other sides too, because I know Craig Damon, he feels the FHSAA commissioner, executive director, feels like there's already too many state championships. You've already got 8 state championship games, and now you're adding another 2 more. So it will be interesting to see what comes of the invitational tournament, whether that condenses the number of classifications from 7 to maybe 6, something along those lines, because now you're back to 10 state champions, 10 different state champions. So will be interesting, because I do think it'll possibly go into other sports as well. It would be great to see that in volleyball. There are a lot of good volleyball teams that don't make the state tournament just because strength of schedule isn't in the cards for them. So I applaud them, because it's like the Sunshine State Athletic Association. So few of the teams that were in there, they were getting starched in district play.
Right.
You had no chance of that. No chance. And it has done wonders for Paxton, Stanton, West Nassau, Fernandina, those guys, because now they can compete. They have a state championship to play for. You're playing like opponents. It's no fun for West Nassau to be in a district with Bolles and Rains and get beat by 90. Come on, that's no fun. So the Florida Invitational Tournament, I think on the surface value, the naysayers will say everybody gets a trophy, it's a participation award, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But it also allows teams that would have no shot in the playoffs to have something to play for. Give them that playoff experience. So no fault in that.
2 games that we're covering tonight, both are at halftime. Fletcher, a 21-6 lead on Flagler Palm Coast, and then the Channel 4 game of the week down in St. Johns County, halftime, Beachside and Tocoi Creek. I got 10-7 Beachside. Surprised it's a defensive battle right now?
Yeah, very surprised. Last time we saw Eddie Jordan, he was breaking the scoreboards with how many how many yards he was putting up. So, yeah, some stats in that game. Eddie Jordan, 12-17, 122 yards. Dolan was 9 catches, 67 yards, touchdown, or 9 carries, 67 yards, touchdown. Not a lot of offense in that game, which is surprising to me, because, man, they put up a lot of points.
I see a couple halftime scores here: 9-0, 13-10, 12-7, 10-7. Is that weather related?
Probably.
Is that
so.
Rain in the area that's slowing down the offenses?
I think it's muddy out there. We've seen the Fletcher Flagler Palm Coast is a little bit nasty out there. So, yeah, I think it's probably a combination of that.
We'll get to some mid-season teams, mid-season players, things that we've seen through the first part of the year in just a moment. Quickly, though, Orange Park, 26-6 over Westside. Boy, Wolfson's putting it on Stanton. I got 38-8. Wolfson over Stanton. Paxton 40-6 over Inglewood. And I still have 14-7 Ed White over Atlantic Coast at halftime. Again, that's a little bit surprising to me.
That's surprising to me. Yeah, I mean, Ed White is my number 10 team. I thought about dropping him out of the rankings this week, but kept him in. He scored 49 points in that game last week. But it's with some of these teams, when you don't play that strong of a schedule, you get into games with teams that have a little bit more to give, and you struggle a little bit. So Ed White's schedule was atrocious until last week. I mean, Inglewood, I'm trying to think, West Side. Inglewood. You're not learning much.
They beat Trinity
those
week
teams.
1,
yeah.
which we thought was a good win at the time, but again, Trinity appears to be down.
Yeah, that win has gotten less and less stellar, and that's kind of what we talk about with Range. I mean, when you looked at Range schedule to begin with before the season, you're like, holy crap, they've got Miami Central, Lake Mary, Riverside, Trinity, Madison County, and then it comes to pass where the Trinity's not as good as it has been. Riverside's not as good. So you take the schedule in a sense with a grain of salt, because when you made that schedule, it looked pretty darn good, but as it's played out, it has not aged very well.
Fletcher 21-6 over Flagler Palm Coast. That'd be a nice win for the Cinders.
Yeah, yes, it would. Yeah, I mean, especially coming off last week, the Oakleaf loss. You go on the road again. Palm Coast was a playoff team last year. Lost a lot to graduation, but that would be a great win for Seatric Basin. I think helped them RPI wise or points wise, and really give some confidence to them. I think that would be a quality win for C4 and company. As
we started talking about over an hour ago now, the two key words on tonight's schedule is bye week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bye weeks. So with that, let's kind of look at the teams that have well-deserved bye weeks this week. We'll begin with St. Augustine. You had them as your number 1 team in your Super 10. Their resume speaks for themselves. Wins over Bolles, Nice, and last week Lake City, Columbia. Brian Braddock wants to figure out some stuff on defense this week, no question. But your thoughts on St. Augustine at a perfect 6-0?
Yeah, really strong start for them. I didn't see it. I picked them to beat Nice. I did not pick them to beat Bolles. So I thought at this point, when I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the season, I know St. Augustine history pretty well. I'm like, well, I think St. Augustine's probably 5-1 through the bye week. They're 6-0, and they played a darn good schedule. Really, really cool. I did see news this week. Joey Wiles being inducted into the St. Augustine Catalinas Hall of Fame. So well-deserved honor for Joey Wiles down there. He's the guy who Brian Braddock played for, and then later on coached with, and then replaced when Joey stepped down. Brian left Mandarin and took that job from Joey Wiles, and has kind of continued that Yellow Jacket tradition.
Nice is off as well. Some of the luster is off. They've lost 2 games in a row, but they lost to St. Augustine and to Buchholz, 2 of the better teams in the state. I know Nice is going through some issues with the coaching staff as well. Where are the Panthers in this bye week? How would you assess them?
There's static with Nice. This week, the FHSA sent Nice an order of citation or whatever it was, a report. Robert Garth, the defensive coordinator, was suspended for 6 weeks for quasi-recruiting, contact with a player that wasn't on the team, and that's through Snapchat and other digital stuff that's traceable. So he has been suspended. The school is going to appeal. The appeal date's October 16th. But as of right now, where we sit, he very well liked defensive coordinator, very popular with his players, very well-known guy, but he is kind of out of the equation now. So it'll be interesting to see how Nice responds to that. I have seen a lot of posts from his players. Colin Draft speaking up on it online, supporting him. So that situation can go one of 2 ways. It can go with that galvanizing the program, which I've seen that happen before, and it could go with the complete implosion, which could also happen. So I've seen that as well. They're high school kids, and that's a beloved figure to them. It could go one of 2 ways. So Robert will get his day in court to protest that, and it's big. I mean, because if that is upheld, that's a $5,000 fine for him. That's a coaching staff he can get fined $5,000 for that infraction. So that's real cause. That's real teeth to a suspension, a punishment like that. Can also linger with Nice for a little bit of time. Anything else kind of comes out of that, you're already on administrative probation. boom, that's another slap on the wrist. You're
Yeah.
in trouble again. So yeah, I think it has the potential to do a couple different things, but it kind of hits Nice at a bad time when you lost 2 in a row and you're having to deal with that.
They got good leadership at Nice, though. Colin Drafts and his staff there. I expect them to navigate this as well as they could. But again, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not a great time in the season. 2-game losing streak, the bye week, and now this news comes out during the bye week.
Now, technically, if this suspension and everything, and they don't terminate him or whatever, if the 6-week suspension, I mean, technically come back for the playoffs if that was, if that was the case. So, but anyway, preliminary stuff there. Nice has said they will appeal. They released a statement online earlier today. So we'll see if that happens. I mean, a situation like this happens quite often. I mean, it happened last year at St. Augustine, to an assistant coach there. So these things happen. I mean, it is what it is. And you'll get your day in court to kind of sort it out and see if you can kind of address that. And if not, you're getting a 6-week break, and you kind of go from there.
A couple of more bye weeks. Jump in on any team you want. Oakleaf, Bolles, Middleburg, Ponte Vedra. Your thoughts on one or two of those teams?
I think Ryan Wolf and Middleburg are doing a solid job. It's kind of been the same MO the last 3 years, where you schedule lighter in that front half, and then you got your rugged district games, and you finish strong. So I think if Middleburg could finish 8-2, 7-3, that would be another wildly successful season for them. And I think we talked on it last week. And Ryan took over a program that was in the dumpster and has slowly rebuilt it. And yeah, you say strength of schedule, and we've harped on that with Reigns and stuff. But I mean, you're trying to build a program. You want to get your guys believing that they can contend and compete and bang with some of these guys. So the second half of Middleburg's schedule is really important, because it'll show if they can truly bang with these teams, or if they're still kind of stuck in that purgatory of we're a good team but not on the next level.
Ponte Vedra's had an interesting year, and I believe Ponte Vedra and Middleburg have a huge district game coming up next week, if memory serves. But the Sharks have been kind of up and down the entire year. They're going to use this bye week to hopefully get healthy for the stretch run, which I believe begins with that key battle with Middleburg next week.
Yeah, and Ponte Vedra, lost to Nice in week 1, and then lost to Beachside. So yeah, if you're Ponte Vedra, you're saying, hey, we got to get. Cole Rosendahl has done fantastic at quarterback there this year for the Sharks, and they did. They graduated a lot. Graduated an unbelievable defensive lineman. He was our lacrosse player of the year. But they've got some players, and I think Ponte Vedra has got to that point where tradition really doesn't graduate, and they just kind of continue under Steve Price to really be that steady and solid team.
It's worth repeating, too, the Xander Edwards game last week is what sent Bolles into their bye week. 522 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, state of Florida records across the board for Xander Edwards. And, Bolles has to be feeling awfully good on offense heading into the bye week. Like we mentioned, giving up 49 to Baldwin last week is probably going to chap some of the coaches on the defensive side of the ball. What do the Bulldogs need to clean up as they get into their stretch run?
Defense.
Yeah.
Defense. You get some of your injured guys back. J.J. Sparks can come back. I mean, I think your offense is fine. But, man, you can't. When I look at Baldwin, the Edwards record is nice, but you needed it to kind of pick up your defense. Your defense allowed 49 points. It's unbelievable to me that it got gashed that bad.
And look, if we weren't talking about Xander Edwards, that sophomore wide receiver at Baldwin went nuts last week. His name escapes me, but that kid had over 200, 250 yards receiving.
Yep.
Edwards would score, he would score.
Yep.
Edwards would score. He was just a back and forth the entire second half.
Yeah, and again, Baldwin's got a good little team. Don Velvet and Screws at quarterback, they've got a good little squad over there. And their 2 losses have been shootout losses. Baker County was a crazy finish like that, where it was much closer, 52 or 49-48 or something.
51-48.
51-48, kind of a crazy game. And then this one to Bolles. I mean, you put 49 on Bolles, that's pretty impressive.
Well, how about if you're Baldwin? Look, and it's a team game. Baldwin has scored 97 points their last 2 games, and they're 0-2. That's a problem, right?
Man,
that's a problem.
That's crazy.
So, you look at Xander Edwards. All right, August, September, as we've now entered the month of October, through the first month and a half. If we were to say, Justin Barney, who is your player of the year in the area, would Xander Edwards be the guy?
Got to be. We haven't seen enough from TJ Cole just because they played 4 games at this point. So I think he's still in that conversation. I think Samorian Wingo, if I'm breaking it down right now, it's got to be Xander Edwards. Some more in we go. Maybe Bryson Wright. But Bryson's almost an all-around player. Not even just. I mean, offensively, he's darn good. But
he's the Travis Hunter of high school football in the area.
He has been so good on defense. It's hard to give. It would be hard for me to give him an offensive player of the year because of how well he's done defensively this season. But yeah, Xander Edwards to me, hands down. I mean, averaging 10 yards a carry, ridiculous this season. So yeah, he'd be my first choice right now.
And again, there's so many guys for Coach of the Year at the midway point.
Yep.
We just talked to one in the first hour, Donovan Masline of Reigns. He would have to be in the conversation.
Yep.
But again, I go back to the resume. If you're talking about Coach of the Year, for me, it's hard. It's not Brian Braddock right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, fair. That's fair. You beat Bolles, you beat Columbia, you beat Nice. Schedule them. You're going to win district championship. You're probably going to go undefeated if you beat Mandarin at the end of the year. So yeah, I don't think there's even. I mean, I think end of the year coach could be different because I do think Masline and Reigns get into that championship game, and if they win, not even a question. But I don't think St. Augustine will win a state championship. But right now, it's got to be Braddock.
Look, St. Augustine will play anybody. Reigns will play anybody. Why don't we ever see that game? St. Augustine and Reigns.
I think some of those games in St. Johns County especially are almost built in to where you play your St. Johns County teams. I know St. Aug and Mandarin play, so that's kind of St. Augustine's one venture out.
And Bolles. They play
Bolles, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the last time I remember I covered a St. Augustine Reigns playoff game, 2004 or 5, and wow. I thought it was one of the best games in the state, and I think St. Augustine just blasted them, maybe like 31-6 or something. And that was like a 9-1 Reigns team. So yeah, I'd like to see that game. You would like to see that.
I would love it.
Maybe next year when these 2-year scheduling cycles go, maybe we'll see maybe see a Nice Reigns or something along those lines.
Now, with the way the playoffs are, you get rewarded for playing games like that, right? Yeah. So that's why you see Bradford and Mandarin. That's why you see Bolles and St. Augustine. You just hope Reigns can kind of get into that mix as well.
Yeah, and so much has been made about Reigns' schedule because you're like, man, you'd like to see them play these heavyweights to see, St. Augustine's playing the heavyweight teams. Reigns just tried to play the heavyweight teams. That Miami Central Reigns game would have probably been the best game in the area all year. I mean, against the toughest opponent. Miami Central's undefeated, nationally ranked. I mean, Reigns is, the name Reigns is unbelievable just on its own accord. So, yeah, it would be nice to see. But, First Coast went through this back in when First Coast was really cranking. But they played a lot of the gateway teams. First Coast, when DeAndre Johnson and Chris Black were there, they were playing the Mandarins and the Reigns and the Ed Whites. For some reason, the teams aren't scheduling Reigns. And, for whatever reason that is, I'm not privy to that. But there's probably a little bit of there have been a lot of kids transferring to Reigns. So I'm sure maybe some of the kids, maybe an Ed White has said, hey, you got a few of our kids, we don't want to play you. That could be. I mean, that was the case years ago for, First Coasts and Trinities didn't want to play each other because you knew that. I made this point online the other night. When Bolles and Trinity were in their heydays, local teams didn't want to play them because they felt when Bolles and Trinity are bringing in all these kids right and left. I mean, you're pilfering kids from all these public schools. And the public schools felt like by playing the Trinities and the Bolles, they're legitimizing the recruiting that's going on. You're giving the Bolles and the Trinity to kind of say, hey, you're stealing our players, but, we're going to play anyway. So coaches got away from that. Bolles and Trinity had to play a lot of games out of the area because of that, because coaches collectively said, we're not going to play you. So maybe that's in a sense with the Reigns where teams are kind of saying, no, we're not going to play you.
Second half action is underway, and the two games that we have cameras at, the Channel 4 game of the week is Beachside and Tocoi Creek down there in St. Johns County. They're also back underway at Fletcher and Flagler Palm Coast. Justin, what game do you want to chime in on?
How about we go to that Tocoi Creek Beachside game right now, 10-7. And, man, Tocoi Creek ripping off a big run.
We got there just in time. Look at that.
Yeah, big run right there. Big field flipper for the Toros on the opening drive of the second half. And what has been a very, very tight defensive game. Not a lot of offense by either of these teams, which is surprising considering the last time we saw Beachside, Eddie Jordan threw for 535 yards.
The interesting thing, we talk about how young these two programs are. Beachside has only had one head coach, right, and Pete Duffy. Tocoi Creek is on their third head coach.
Yes.
If you're a senior at Tocoi, you're playing for your third head coach in 4 years. How tough is that for those kids?
Yeah, I think so. And Doling came after Harbison, and he was already in the program. But yeah, I mean, you started with Kolakowski.
Yeah. Well, he was a character.
Yeah, he was
I enjoyed him.
He was one, and then you go from Kolakowski to Harbison, and now to Kevin Doling. But I think you just roll with the punches.
Yeah, so third head coach in 4 years. It's not affecting them, though, having a good year. But Beachside, clearly the favorite in this matchup. We'll see if they're able to hold on. And then as we go into Flagler, Palm Coast, and Fletcher down at Flagler, Palm Coast High School, boy, you can see the field there. Good grief. Hopefully kids don't get injured on a field like that. It has been raining very heavily down there in Flagler. But Fletcher up 15 at the half. Flagler looking to get something going here.
Yeah, I was Beachside with the turnover. Takeaway right there is that. Wow.
Wow, yep.
The big man is rumbling and stumbling. Oh, track down right at the 2-yard line. What a play there. So Tocoi Creek goes from knocking on the door to scoring to it going back the opposite way, and that could be a pretty big swing in momentum there. Tocoi Creek down 10-7, a chance to take the lead or at least tie the game, and how about that? Big 44 of Beachside.
Get that man some oxygen.
Yeah, my goodness. What a play right there. A defensive play in a defensive game so far in the Surf and Turf.
Yeah, so we'll see if Beachside is able to punch it in. Beachside 10-7, looking to go up 2 possessions. Again, back down at Flagler Palm Coast High School, the field is just absolutely destroyed. Again, Flagler down 21-6 to Fletcher. Interesting game. Fletcher and Flagler Palm Coast. I like that they're playing this, but this almost seems like a game where Fletcher was looking for an opponent and Flagler Palm Coast stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, these two teams have been in districts for many years. I remember when Josh Corey was at Fletcher, them being in the district with Flagler Palm Coast and Sandalwood and stuff. So I remember, big play there.
Yep.
Nasty field
Look
down
at that
there.
field.
Man, St. Augustine played down in a kickoff classic, I believe, in 2005 at Flagler Palm Coast, and I was standing on the field after the game talking to Joey Wiles, and the pits on the field were just unbelievable. I mean, dips and everything, and Joey says one of the worst fields he's ever seen. I mean, like ankle-breaking kind of holes in the field, so thankfully it's not like that there anymore now.
Well, and this goes into, a lot of Duval County schools, at least the newer stadiums, are getting that turf.
Yes.
Which obviously is expensive.
Yeah.
We understand that, and high school football isn't the same for everybody. But you love to see as much turf going in as possible because obviously fields like this and weather conditions like this can be dangerous.
Yeah, it's I know players like to play more on grass than they do turf, but turf's getting so good now that the NFL it's a big deal in the NFL to play on natural grass fields than it is on turf fields, but turf fields are so much easier on maintenance and upkeep that it's kind of been the way to go.
Could be a big night of bragging rights in our area. Bishop Kinney, from our understanding, is really taking it to Tallahassee Rickards. Mandarin really taking it to Rockledge. Flagler Palm Coast considerably closer than those schools, but still a little bit out of the area. Fletcher's up on them. Could be a big night for Northeast Florida when it comes to bragging rights.
Yeah, and you got to win these games. Fletcher going down there and a little bit of bragging rights game, but a tough test too. I mean, Flagler Palm Coast is a good opponent for Fletcher, especially a Fletcher opponent coming off a big loss to Oakleaf last week.
We have some movement in the Ed White Atlantic Coast matchup. Ed White has scored to make it 20-7. Atlantic Coast scores right back, 20-14. Ed White over Atlantic Coast late in the third quarter.
Yeah, how about that? Ed White banging with them, and Atlantic Coast giving it right back to them. So pretty good night for both those teams. More for Atlantic Coast. If you could get a win over Ed White, that would change things quite a bit.
It would be the biggest. To me, it'd be the biggest upset of the night to this point.
So that was the Beachside game. That was Tyler Richardson, a 67-yard interception return off of a screen pass that set up that Galila run for Beachside for that touchdown. So 17-7, Beachside over Tocoi.
You love to see the big lineman, 67 yards. He was huffing and puffing. He just had to get 2 or more yards for pay dirt. Obviously, he didn't get there. Has Beachside, do we know if they punched it in yet? Have we gone back to that game? They did punch it in?
It's Galila with the 3-yard touchdown run. So that 67-yard interception return that went down to the 3, Vinny Galila. punched it in with a 3-yard touchdown run, his second of the game.
Give the defensive tackle the ball on that one. That's his touchdown. Creekside 16-13 over Fleming Island, Justin, in a really interesting game. Fleming Island coming off a tough loss last week in a district contest, I believe, to Ponte Vedra.
Yep.
They're back in St. Johns County tonight. That would be a nice win for whoever gets it. Right now, Creekside's up on Fleming by a field goal.
Yeah, and those games have been crazy with Creekside and Fleming the last few years. I think Creekside's got 4 straight wins in that series, if I'm not mistaken, and all of them have been just like tooth and nail into the game. 48-45, 31-30. I mean, so crazy finishes in those games. So I expect that one to shape up like that again tonight.
Quickly, last night, University Christian lost actually pretty handily. We lost 28-8 to a team outside of the area. Now, University Christian has played a lot of teams outside of the area. We know David Penwin, the head coach over there, likes to play teams outside of the area for traveling purposes. But a 20-point loss for University Christian is not something you see every day.
Yeah, and that's a big win for True North, and a good team. And again, David Penland III likes playing those games. He likes getting out of the area and scheduling a game just for the reasons we talked about, because competition, it's not a team you see all the time. And UC is another team that has had difficulty scheduling local games, and that's why you've seen D3 have to go out of the area and schedule some of these crazy opponents. I remember a few years ago they played a team out of like Kentucky on ESPN2 for a game with the Highlands, I believe. So yeah, they've played some unorthodox opponents.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So we'll come back. We'll give you a complete scoreboard update. We'll set the table on what is the very early part of the Friday Night Lights, whereas Justin will have Channel 4 beginning at 10:30 this evening. I'll be on the radio on 1010XL with the radio portion of Friday Night Lights coming up here in about 45 minutes or so. We'll take you up till 9 o'clock tonight. We'll check back in on both Flagler, Palm Coast, and Fletcher. We'll also check back in St. Johns County on Beachside and Tocoi Creek. As the Friday Night Lights on 4+, presented by Farah and Farah, roll on, and we're glad you're spending your Friday Night Lights with us.
Overtime, weekdays at 10 on CW17.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
Back here under the Friday Night Lights, presented by Farah and Farah, with Justin Barney, the hacker Ryan Green with you. Let's do one more scoreboard, Justin, as 6:30 games are starting to wind down. Remember, Duval County schools begin at 6:30. Wolfson 38-8 over Stanton. Paxson 40-6 over Inglewood. Quickly to Wolfson again. You mentioned it earlier. That's a nice win. That Stanton team's pretty good. And for Wolfson to be that dominant tonight.
And Wolfson is, I'm telling you, people think when they hear Wolfson, Paxton's having a darn good season. Stanton's having a good season. These guys are different. This Wolfson team is a little bit better than people have given it credit for, myself included. So good. It'll be a good win for them tonight. I know, tough one for Coach Bettinger, though.
Yeah, the former Hurricane Marcus Wimberly and Orange Park are up big on West Side. Orange Park going to get their 3rd win of the year.
Yep, they're back to 500. In our game of the week, Vinny Gallela has another touchdown run for Beachside. They're up 24-7. So a lot of good performances tonight from from Vincent Gallela. And here I'm thinking Eddie Jordan's going to completely light it up. He didn't even have a passing touchdown tonight. It's all on the ground.
Well, and that's for Beachside's point of view. And again, we're watching that Beachside Tocoi Creek game right now, the Channel 4 game of the week down in St. Johns County. Beachside is proving they can win on the ground tonight. They can obviously win through the air. That's a dangerous combo. That's a good football team.
And Alessandro was talking to me about keys to the game. I said Tocoi Creek could ignore the running game because Beachside does everything through the air. Well, I think maybe Pete Duffy saw that key to the game and said, "Hey guys, what Justin said, we're going to switch it up. We're going to go completely on the ground," and that's what they have done tonight.
Ed White, Atlantic Coast, shaping up to be maybe the best finish of the night. Ed White, 20-14 as they enter the 4th quarter.
A little surprising to me in that game. Maybe Atlantic Coast is better than we gave him credit for. Maybe Ed White is not as good against better teams such as Atlantic Coast. That's going to be a good one come down to the wire.
Baker County having very little trouble with Halifax Academy, 41-0. Mandarin, very little trouble with Rockledge on the road tonight. Justin, Mandarin, 23-0 at the half.
Not a bad performance from the Mustangs. We talk about Bryson Wright, Knox Annis, the really good offense, Kyrie Wilson. But man, the defense showing up and showing out.
NFEI continues to lead Episcopal, 12-7. Would that be an upset in your opinion?
It would be, and I just, like I said, for the bigger reason, body of school. I mean, the student body at Episcopal compared to NFEI is huge. So yeah, it would be a little bit of a surprise.
Bishop Kenny having very little trouble with Tallahassee Rickards. Boy, Bishop Kenny, what an interesting year for them. They have big wins over University Christian, Tocoi Creek. We obviously talk about what they're doing to Rickards tonight. Bolles had no trouble with them, though, and they also lost a heartbreaker to Beachside. They've been all over the place.
Yeah, really. I mean, Beachside, Tocoi Creek has been a little bit up and down this season, so they got crushed by Bishop Kenny. And they played well in some games, too, and, they were poised to probably go up in this game before that big defensive play.
Trinity Christian 9-0 over Riverside. They're pitching a shutout in the third quarter.
Yeah, you do not want to blow that game if you're Trinity Christian. It's really for Verlin-Dormany. This is almost a must-win game. You cannot lose this game. You cannot blow this opportunity to do that because you've got you got to worry about rankings at this point. I mean, anytime you just continue, your only win is over NFEI.
Yeah.
And it was 27-6. Not a really impressive performance. You can't blow this game against Riverside.
If you're Verlin-Dormany, you've accomplished so much already. What, 9 state championships? I mean, absolutely nuts. And to have a tough season like this, you're gonna figure out if you love coaching still pretty quickly during a year like this. If you're Verlin.
Yeah, and I think I think he likes it for the challenge of coaching the young men and developing them and seeing it because I mean it's really. Looks like we had another Beachside touchdown there. So, for Verlin, it's a chance to actually spend time coaching and developing and mentoring. It's probably one of your truer coaching jobs. How much more difficult is it to coach 5-stars than it is to coach a bunch of freshmen and sophomores and juniors? I think it's more challenging to coach the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, and that coaching staff. I mean, they're having to really coach this year. I mean, it's more than trotting Jeffrey Holland and Kevin Tollivers out there and saying, "Hey guys, go win us some games." This is some true coaching.
And I almost hate to classify it this way or ask this question, but the loser of tonight's game, Riverside Trinity Christian. I mean, it's been a disastrous year by whoever loses the game. Their standards. It's just a situation you don't want to be in. I mean, Riverside is a proud program, yet for whatever reason, this just does not seem to be their year.
It's been a bad year for Antoine Nicholas and company, and you were one point away from being winless. I mean, you had to come back and rally to beat Ribault 21-20 in a game that I thought Ribault was going to win.
And yet, in that same breath, they almost beat St. Augustine.
They almost did. So, it's a tough coaching job, and for Antoine Nicholas, you're still alive in the district race, though. So, all is not lost, but it's going to come down to a game against you and Ed White, and we'll see. We'll see what they can do, but really a must-win tonight for Trinity Christian.
You talk about Beachside and Tocoi Creek, the Channel 4 game of the week. Beachside is certainly pulling away from them, but 33-7.
Man, this game changed in a hurry.
Oh, my goodness. It was 10-7 a matter of moments ago.
Yeah, 10-7 just 7.5 minutes ago, and now Beachside has actually poured it on. Vinny Gallela, another touchdown run, 11-yard run. Unbelievable.
Is he channeling his inner Xander Edwards?
I'm telling you, they looked at the keys to the game tonight and said, oh, Justin thinks we're going to throw it all over the field. No, we got a running back too, and they have given it to Vinny Gallela, and that was set up by a blocked punt as well. So Beachside, really doing some stuff on offense, defense, and special teams.
I want to take a final look at the Northwest Classic in a moment. The game tomorrow, 2 o'clock, between Rains and Ribault. Again, thank you to Donovan Masline, the head coach of Reigns, for joining us earlier on here on the Friday Night Lights on 4+. Before we get there, Justin, let's also take a brief look ahead next week. All the teams that were on bye weeks this week obviously come out of those byes, and there's some key district matchups next week.
Yeah, a lot of big ones. Of course, we have Reigns Ribault tomorrow, so our work in this week is not completely done. But as the page turns to week 8, Hacker, I cannot believe it.
Crazy.
Atlantic Coast Creekside, that's for a district championship next week. Baldwin going over to Wolfson, that's a district game, but man, that's two hot teams going into that one. I think Baldwin's still the upper hand in that one, but way Wolfson's playing, and I know the Wolfpack players are going to fill the Instagram inbox tonight because I picked against them. So that is going to be a good one. Bishop Kenny at Menendez, that's a good game next week. Inglewood and Riverside. I mean, I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I mean, Inglewood is winless. Riverside is possibly going to go into that game 1-6. Unbelievable. That's a big win that's a big game for both teams there. Fernandina Yulee, a great win in Nassau County next week. You got First Coast and Oakleaf, district game there. Can First Coast get back on the horse and get in that district race after that loss to Mandarin last week? Some other good ones. Fleming Island at Beachside, that's a district game. Fletcher at Mandarin, a big district game as well. Buholtz at Tocoi Creek, huge game for the Toros. Can they slow that Bobcats Express? Madison County at Reigns. Again, Madison County having a down year, but they are still one of the best small school programs in the state. Nice and Bartram Trail, a little bit more intensity in that game this year than in years past. That's a big game for both of those teams.
Ironic that game's next week. I'll just say that.
Ironic that game's next week. Ponte Vedra Middleburg, you talked about that earlier. Those are the big ones for next week. So a lot of good ones after really a lull of a week with so many teams off. We got a really good slate of games, high-stakes games next week.
And let's be honest, the playoffs don't officially begin until the month of November.
Yep.
There are playoff games next week for some of these teams. You need to win or you're not going to the postseason.
Yeah, and you're looking at ratings, points, and watching that, how those ebb and flow each week. But the quickest way to guarantee the playoffs is win your district.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way you get in. And unlike in the past when it was the district champ, the district runner-up, you're only guaranteed if you win a district now. So Ponte Vedra is probably out of the district race after that loss to Beachside. But you can still get into the playoffs. I mean, they're third, right, in the rankings, playoff rankings.
They had a must-win last week, and they did over Fleming. And next week against Middleburg is also a huge game.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't win your district unless something crazy happens with Beachside losing here or there. I don't see that happening. So you really have to win out if you're Ponte Vedra. Fleming Island tonight against Creekside, that's a huge game for Fleming Island because you lose that game and all of a sudden, oh man, we're out of the district race. We're 3-3 now. We've got a tough schedule coming up. It's not looking good. So all of these games at this point are massively important for those teams that have kind of fallen behind in that district path.
We see Fletcher and Flagler Palm Coast still going at it down there at Flagler Palm Coast High School. Fletcher in control of this one, looking to come back to the beach with a well-earned victory and a nice response for Fletcher. It did not go their way last week against Oakleaf. They've turned around, hit the road, and are looking pretty good now, up 21-6 there in the latter stages of quarter number 3. All right, tomorrow, the Northwest Classic, Reigns and Ribault. Game is at 2 o'clock. Festivities will begin long before that. Justin, tell people why they should go check out one of the best rivalries in Northeast Florida.
It's a great atmosphere, great food out there. We're talking, we heard from Donovan Masline, the things before the game and the after the game. Oh, the game, yeah, by the way, there's a game at 2 o'clock, but you may not even know it with all the stuff, environment going on at Ribault. And great opportunity for people to check out the new Ribault campus as well. New turf field over there, beautiful new facility after it was the old school was demolished and new one was built up. I think the football game was going to be a lot of punishment for Ribault.
Reigns is a machine right now.
Reigns is absolutely a machine. They won 8 in a row in that series. Their defense has just been punishing people. I think they've got, I want to say, maybe 8 or 9 defensive and special teams touchdowns combined this year. They are just crushing teams. I think they've outscored teams 225-17, something along those lines.
We're talking about embarrassment of riches. They actually have a kicker this year.
They have a kicker this year.
In years past, Reigns hasn't had a kicker. This year they do.
Yeah, and I think as much as Ribault would love to win this game, I just think Reigns' defense Ribault's in for a day of toughness. I mean, Ribault's got some good defensive players. I just don't think that they can withstand the barrage from Raines.
And let's be honest, it's tough right now if you're Ribault, because if you're a good football player in that side of town and you have the option to go to both schools,
Yep.
where are you going to go?
Yep.
You're going to go to Raines, and Ribault's going to have to eventually do something about that.
Yeah, that's in every school, every sport. You don't want to. I mean, look, kids and parents are smart these days.
Yeah.
They, you want to go and play a successful program. I mean, Bryson Wright at Mandarin, he's in St. Augustine. You got a chance to go play with Tramel Jones last year and Jamie French. I mean, you have opportunities that you didn't have before, and it's not. I mean, kids and parents aren't stupid.
No.
They follow the money train, the meal ticket.
And you can't blame them at all.
No, we saw it at Tim Tebow with Nice. I mean, you had players lining up to go to Nice and to get into the school there because kids want to play and be seen at a good program. So, yeah, if you're Ribault and Raines, you're 1 mile apart. Well, I may want to go play basketball at Ribault, but, man, I want to play football at Raines.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast. And until Ribault kind of starts putting things together and getting some wins, then it's gonna continue to be Raines and everything over there on Moncrief.
We got to update your television portion of Friday Night Lights continuing on Channel 4. I got that radio program coming up here in one moment, but quickly, Ed White has now a 2-touchdown lead on Atlantic Coast, 35-21 in the fourth quarter. Episcopal has taken the lead on NFEI, 14-12 late in the third quarter. And also, Creekside still holding on to a field goal lead over Fleming, 16-13. Riverside did score. Trinity has answered.
Okay.
16-7 Trinity in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and again, I keep saying it's a must-win for Trinity, must-win for Riverside too.
Yeah.
But I think for Trinity in that congested 1A bracket with University Christian in there and Impact and Providence, you got to win. You got to win. You can't continue to lose backing in there. And of course, in our game of the week, 38-7, Drew Watson. He's the recipient of Eddie Jordan's first touchdown pass of the game, 38-yard touchdown pass. I went to school with Drew's father, Barry, a good guy. So 38-7 Beachside over Tocoi Creek in the surf and turf. Looks like the surf is going to beat the turf on slippery night of football out there.
It looks like Flagler Palm Coast trying to make this Fletcher game more of a battle in the fourth quarter as they are on the doorstep of the goal line. Again, Fletcher up 21-6 in this ball game. Looks like Flagler Palm Coast has it. We're at about the 2-yard line, it looks like, trying to punch it in to make it a game there in the fourth quarter. All right, you on television, your night is just beginning. What do you guys have coming up on Channel 4?
Yeah, we got shooters all at games in the area, so we'll have highlights from all of our games around this area. Remember, it's a leaner week of football games, but we still got a lot of highlights coming to you. That's at 10:30 tonight right here on News4JAX.com, News4JAX Plus, and Channel 4. And you can also find all those highlights over on our sports page at News4JAX.com and our Sports4JAX Instagram.
I'll be leaving the Channel 4 studios momentarily. I'll be heading back over to the 1010XL studios for the radio portion of Friday Night Lights. We'll be on probably in about, because Bishop Kenny's up by 100 right now, we'll be on probably in about 20 or 25 minutes on the radio side, taking you all the way up to roughly 11 o'clock tonight. Victoria's head coaches all over Northeast Florida. Justin, final thoughts on what has been an interesting night of high school football?
You mentioned 100 points. When I was looking back and for some of the rushing totals and stuff from the area in this past week, Xander Edwards, I stumbled into an old one. University Christian had a 130-0 win back in 1973.
Wow.
And a guy named Scott Ward rushed for 7 touchdowns in that game. So when I went to UC, that game was still mentioned and talked about.
Did they not believe in a running clock?
There was no
then?
such thing as a running clock. I'm sure egos were swelling up on the sides of the team that got beat because you get humiliated. 130-0 in a game like that. Yeah, you see the days of 100-point games were used to be prevalent back in the Robbie Pruitt era, this before Robbie Pruitt. How about Robbie Pruitt, the old University Christian and Union County coach? He's now down at Williston. Still one on the guy name in the area, but he won his 200th career game in Florida last week down at Williston. He had 209 wins in Georgia, the first coach in American history to win 200 games in 2 different states.
Wow, no kidding.
So 7 state championships right here in Florida, 4 with UC, 3 at Union County. Really, really, really good dude. So he's in the history books all by himself. So he is legend down there at Williston, and we got to sample a little bit of that. So four titles at UC, 3 at Union County, part of 3 consecutive state championships at Union County, 52 game state record winning streak in those state championships. And trivia question: who ended Union County's state record winning streak?
Ooh, I don't know. Who did?
Trinity Christian.
Did they? Okay.
Trinity Christian. So, yeah, it's pretty useless knowledge there.
No,
But
no.
yeah,
Well,
congrats to Robbie Pruitt on that.
hey, I'm going to use it on the radio show, but I will give you credit
That's
for
right.
that.
409 career wins.
That's crazy. And
409.
200 in 2 different states,
That's
which
crazy.
is nuts. That probably will never be
That's
done again.
Never. I mean, 209 in Georgia and 200 in Florida. And not only winning, but successful. I mean, he was a Florida High School Hall of Fame inductee in his late 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows how just dominant he was.
Justin, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, another one in the books. It's fun.
Another one in the books. Week 7 in the books. We'll be back right here next week for Week 8. Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. Thank you for watching Friday Night Lights on 4 Plus, presented by Farrah and Farrah. Have an absolutely terrific weekend, everybody.
See why every day more people are choosing News4JAX, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.